All right, we want to welcome now all of our viewers on CBS 47. This is continuing coverage of breaking news. We're now on both CBS 47 and Fox 30 as we continue to cover this wildfire in Nassau County that is burning a minimum of 250 acres, but that figure is at least an hour old. We have not gotten an updated figure because the folks who can give that information are too busy fighting this fire right now. But the winds are fanning these flames to the south and southwest. Right now, anyone living in near County Road 121 and County Road 119 need to get out. They have been evacuated. Folks have gone door to door to remove folks to get them out of the way of this fire. Wind, serious issue here.
And we know there are unconfirmed reports of damaged structures. This is an exclusive look at the flames from Sky Action News Jax, the only news helicopter in town. You can see how close those flames are getting to homes and the roads there. We just saw a truck just ride by.
Look at that. That's some of the most intense flames we've seen so far as we've been watching this live on Sky Action News Jax for the last 2 hours now as it burns to the tops of these trees. That is incredible right there, folks. And we can tell you that Florida Forestry Service is attacking this fire. There's a limit to what they can do when it's this powerful, but they've got 8 bulldozers on the scene trying to get a fire line. But we heard the spokeswoman tell us as long as that wind is blowing, there's no guarantee that these embers, from especially when they get as high from that tree there, that they won't be blowing on and beyond that fire line as they work to try to contain this fire.
It's clear that it's not getting any better. It's actually getting worse. You can see the flames starting to hit the tops of those trees there. Our Mike Burr has talked about this being its own weather condition, that the winds are gathering up around those trees, pushing the fire. There's a road right there. If I can get some information about what road that is, it's coming right up against a highway, and we see people trying to evacuate. This is an area you want to avoid. We know it's County Road 121 and 119, but I want to get a better view of where this particular fire is really getting out of control.
Yeah, we'll try to get word to Sky Action News Jax so they can radio back to get us their exact location right now. But we've seen throughout the last 2 hours some of these flames come right up to the backyard of a house that we saw unfolding live on Action News Jax at 6 o'clock, I believe it was. But look at that thick black smoke. I want to keep this picture up. I don't know if we can have a little box here to give folks who are just joining us from CBS 47 a visual update on all the information here, because I want to make sure everybody's very clear. There it is. We have reports of structure damage. Again, we saw these flames right next to the house that we were watching live from Sky Action News Jax, and there are several structures in this area that are being threatened right now. A minimum of 250 acres burning. I suspect this number is substantially higher than that estimate. And again, they are ordering evacuations in this area. Again, County Roads 121 and 119. The Countryside Acres neighborhood area was evacuated a while ago, right after really the wind shifted from the southeast to the southwest as this fire shifted a little west of where it had been burning. And again, folks, as you watch these flames, remember, this fire started as a 5-acre fire that they had contained. And that's the point. They had it contained. And then the winds shifted and picked up and started blowing embers from the tops of the trees across the fire line. And that's when it got out of control and has now spread to a minimum of 250 acres.
We just now added a new picture for you from a viewer. You guys are starting to send us video and pictures as you can. We appreciate that. This is from the ground. A lot of families who are there, this is what they're seeing. We're seeing a sky view. There are families and people there that are looking up and seeing this in their backyards. It's a very dangerous situation. There are a couple of roads I want to point out here. DB Hicks Road, Willis Road, Cortez Road, Countryside Acres, River Farms Road. This is in a rural area. As you can see, there's a huge forest there, but there are homes and structures and people that live in little pockets throughout here, and there's county roads all throughout this area that we need to make sure those families know it's coming towards them.
Yeah, just a few minutes ago we heard from Daryl Atkinson, the pastor at Brandy Branch Church, offering up the church at 121 towards 90 as a place folks who are being evacuated can go and stop off for some drinks and food. He said they'll be there and open as long as they can until, if in fact they are forced to leave as well. So if you need to go, we have a viewer, Sean, on the phone with us right now. And Sean, I presume you are somewhere near this fire. What are you seeing? What can you tell us?
Well, I actually was part of the families that got evacuated. I actually evacuated about 10 minutes from where the fire is actually at, but I'm at my cousin's grandparents' house, which is right down the road from 119.
All right. So you're 119. Sean, as we were looking, I just want to let folks at home know this is a live look at Sky Action News Jax. What we're seeing, so you know, too, is some fire trucks just pulling up onto what is surely a spot fire. Embers have blown toward the road there, and a smaller fire has blown up here. But Sean, let me ask you, what were you seeing as you evacuated just 10 minutes before the fire was coming to your place?
Yeah, as I was getting into my car, me and my wife, we were loading up, and
say that again.
The fire was burning our front yard and backyard was burning up, and our house was the next. Had to have been burning up next, but we barely made it there before our cars were about to catch on.
You said you and your wife were leaving as the fire was burning your front yard and your backyard.
Yes, front and backyard were both on fire.
And you suspect that your house has been burned in all of this as well?
Survived unless the fire trucks pulled in that yard right after I pulled out of it.
Wow. Okay. Well, first and foremost, I hope that's not the case, and we'll be thinking of you. Were you how much warning did you have? I mean, were you able to bring anything, pictures and the like, or were you able to just escape with what you had on your body?
Yeah, I actually took those pictures about 10 minutes before we evacuated. We didn't realize how fast it was escalating, and as soon as embers started falling in our yard immediately caught on fire. We grabbed the dog, we grabbed the water, and we ran.
Wow. I guess I was referring to any pictures and mementos you may have had in your house. I mean, everybody fears the worst in these situations, and I can only imagine what might have been going through your mind. What was going through your mind?
I was trying to get my wife and my daughter to safety on my move.
And you are at safety now. The three of you are okay.
Hello?
I think we might have lost Sean there. Sean, if you can still hear me again, we're glad the three of you are okay. You said you're at your mom's house on 119, away from the fire now. You're in a safe spot now.
Yes, we are in a safe spot now.
Okay. Our thoughts and prayers to you, sir, and we certainly hope that the fire somehow managed to get around your house. But as Sean just told us, he was evacuating as the flames were burning his front and backyard. And we've seen this. We saw a house about an hour ago as those flames came right up to the edge of that house. And we're watching it right now as the spot fire has really grown even in the last few minutes that we've been watching this, Letitia.
Yeah, it's an unusual circle at this point, and it's growing. It's getting closer to that street there. You can see fire officials are now on that road. Chief Meteorologist Mike Burge is watching this very closely. Mike, what are your thoughts if we've watched this develop over the last 2 hours?
Well, again, sunset is about 30 to 35 minutes away or so in this portion of Nassau County, which is inland. It's about 25 miles northwest of Jacksonville. And once we get to sunset, those winds should have a tendency to come down some. They're not going to go calm, but they should come down at least a little bit. The humidity is also going to increase, which helps firefighters. We're looking at winds likely to go down to maybe 10 to 15 miles per hour overnight, maybe locally even a little bit less, though around the fire, in the vicinity of the fires I've been talking about for a couple of hours, could develop their own even stronger winds at times. So that's a concern and could come into play. And then they'll stay gusty through the day tomorrow out of an easterly direction. So the humidity will stay up tomorrow. There'll be more cloud cover. There may be an isolated shower. Overall, the weather conditions should be a little more favorable tomorrow for firefighters. But in the meantime, it stays very dangerous for at least the next couple of hours. In fact, Nassau County Emergency Management has just reported as of about 15 to 20 minutes ago that multiple structures remain in danger and that the original fire seems to be flaring up again, which, as we're seeing here in this live video, seems to be certainly true. And they have activated the quote-unquote incident management team. And that's usually done when wildfires are especially dangerous and fast spreading. So again, as of 6:59, so that was as of 10 minutes ago, an incident management team has been activated and is now active at the scene of that fire in Nassau County, which, by the way, is also very close to Charlton County in Georgia and Baker County in Florida, too. And you can see how those embers have likely spread out away from that main fire line, those spot fires, which are a big concern for firefighters now through this evening and overnight. The winds still now at 50 to 25 miles per hour, the much higher gusts are likely to continue through the overnight, but gradually come down some, especially once we get to after sunset. But that fire is still very active, very strong. And when it's this big, this strong now, more than 250 acres, it's creating its own environment, its own weather environment. And so it's likely going to kind of sort of feed off of itself, unfortunately, for quite some time. This will be a long time before it's out, a long time probably before it's under control, and even longer before it's out. There will be better conditions overall tomorrow, though, with the clouds and a little higher humidity and even a few widely scattered showers from time to time. But I see no significant widespread rain, more than likely through the weekend right on into next week, which is something to be concerned about for all of Northeast Florida, Metro Jacksonville, and Southeast Georgia. There will be a high fire danger for the foreseeable future until we can get a storm system in here that would produce widespread and heavy rain. I don't see that happening anytime real soon, guys.
All right, Mike. As we look at a wider view right now, we're just getting some new information that kind of helps tell the story and the scope of the fight for this fire right now. JFRD telling us they have 20-plus units on the scene, 50-plus firefighters. That's just with JFRD that's come up and provided some of this mutual aid. That does not include Nassau County Fire Rescue and the forestry folks that are there as well. You're looking at a fire truck pulling in as we've watched this, what they call a spot fire, grow in a circular pattern there, extending out and toward that road. Presumably started from an ember that blew to that location and then kind of grew out from that ember. Fascinating to watch, but a very scary situation for the folks in this area. Again, County Road 121 and 119. This is the hard-hit area of Nassau County facing this fire right now. That area is under an evacuation order. Folks need to be out. Presumably they already are. We did talk with one evacuee just a few minutes ago on the phone, Sean, telling us that he was able to get his wife and his daughter out as the flames were burning up his front and backyard. He was pulling out as the brave firefighters were pulling in to try to save his house. I mean, can you imagine?
No.
You've got a fire burning up your yard as you're escaping with your family, hoping that the firefighters who are pulling in can save your home.
Right, and that's what we know some families at least are dealing with right now. We talked a little bit about resources. The Florida Forestry Service talked about using 8 bulldozers, as well as, JFRD is on the scene. They're using bulldozers too to put up a fire line. They're hoping obviously to contain this. So they're using those bulldozers. We asked about attacking this from the sky. The spokesperson said that they did plan to use helicopters to cool the fire edge and dump water on this. We've seen this in other places like California, for example. We've shown you those images, but now this is in our backyard, and we're using some of those techniques here to try to get this under control. Her big concern, gusty winds. She says once we get it contained, no problem, but she can't do anything about gusty winds.
So what we're looking at here too is, I mean, I'm not sure the road that we're looking at, but you see all the firefighters there. That road acts as a natural barrier, okay? So I've covered a couple wildfires out west as well, and these firefighters are trying to dig a line, basically put a break in there so that the fire can't burn anything else. Now, what you were talking about was exactly the problem, the wind that burns the fire from the tops of these trees across the lines that had been made by the firefighters, or in this case by a road, and then the fire continues to burn forward. And that's how this thing spreads so quickly, and you can only hope to have the wind die down so that you can get the fire under control. It burns up to your stopping point where you have dug this fire line, and then you can douse the flames and keep everything under control. Those flames look a little less because they've been burning and they're running out of fuel. That's what we hope to have happen. It burns up to this road and it stops, but as long as that wind is blowing, that's when we have the problem. Mike Burrish, our chief meteorologist, telling us that the wind gusts of 20+ miles an hour are going to slowly die down as the sun sets. We hope that that happens quickly and fast enough, if you will, so that some of these flames can start to die out and stop spreading. The first thing is to stop spreading. To the right on your screen there is some video we shot about an hour and a half ago from Sky Action News Jax. It was live on Action News Jax at 6 o'clock, I believe it was when it was live. We watched that fire burn right up to that house. And so this is video that's an hour and a half old. What we don't know is the status of that house. The smoke that's being created from this fire obviously limits our pilot from Sky Action News Jax to get into and around some of these areas. Clearly, after the smoke moves out and the fire is under control, we're going to be able to go back and see what has happened from all of this. There are unconfirmed reports of damaged structures in this area, but that was a dramatic moment to give you a very good look at just what we're talking about here, and really what, like our friend Sean was telling us, the evacuee on the phone, as the fire's burning the backyard, he's escaping with his family. And again, the firefighters coming in to try to save the homes that are in this area. We talked with Randy Wise from the Jacksonville Association of Firefighters, and he talked about how these firefighters, well trained, they come in, they back in down these long driveways because this is a rural area, and they prepare to fight the fire until the very last second that they decide it's not safe and they themselves have to get out. So it's a scary situation for everybody involved, and certainly we want to thank the firefighters for doing their job as we continue to fight this wildfire in Nassau County.
Incredibly brave for our firefighters to actually use their equipment and really themselves as a barrier. I want to point to something on Twitter. JFRD, their union, their firefighter association tweets, minute by minute. They just tweeted maybe the last 15 minutes that their hearing crews had to abandon another structure. Basically, they were fighting a fire, what looks to be like maybe a trailer, and they had to go. They tried to fight it off, but it ended up, it was not safe for them to stay there. So as this develops, we're going to hear about incidents throughout Nassau County where firefighters are trying to save structures, but they eventually got to go because it just becomes too dangerous for them.
All this happening along County Road 121 and 119. What did we say it was, about 5-10 miles from Bryceville? Anyway,
5 miles northwest of Bryceville.
5 miles northwest of Bryceville. 2 miles
northwest of downtown Jacksonville.
So there you go. That gives you some perspective. Again, we've been saying Bryceville wildfire, but it is about 5 miles away from Bryceville proper in a rural area, but certainly structures, homes have been threatened. Again, top right-hand part of your screen, you can see that home threatened. And again, I've pointed this out before, but the remarkable thing about all of this, and to demonstrate just how quickly things change, this fire this afternoon started as a 5-acre fire that Forestry Service folks had under control. They had it under control. It was only 5 acres. And then what happened? Wind gusts came, they shifted, and they started to blow the embers from that fire, and that is when the fire grew out of control to a number we're saying is 250 acres. It has to be quite a bit larger than that. Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Mike Bursch again to talk more about those winds, and again, I mentioned it, but when we can expect them to start diminishing.
Yeah, and watching this video here from Sky Action News Jackson. Again, this is live video on the left side of your screen. This is what's happening right now before your very eyes. The only helicopter in town and news and weather helicopter that can bring you up-to-date information literally is we're seeing it here. And I don't believe that's the head of the fire, actually. I think we're seeing the side of the fire. It's not the most active part of the fire, in other words. And you can still see there's a lot of flames. It's still significant. But the wind is pushing it this way on your screen, so the fire's heading that way. So the head of the fire is likely on the left side and probably well to the left side of what we're seeing right now from Sky Action News Jax. So my point is, this looks like it's kind of maybe not spreading as quickly as it was an hour ago. I don't think that's the head of the fire, and that's why. So it's still significant. It's still a lot of flames, as you can see there, but the head of the fire is likely to the west and southwest of where we're seeing this particular fire right now, which is probably closing in on the highway or even has possibly crossed the highway that's been in this view from time to time from Sky Action News Jax. Here are those winds that have generally been blowing 15 to 20 miles per hour sustained, but in the vicinity of the fire, Garrett and I have seen winds on First Alert Doppler HD and First Alert Storm Analysts estimated at 50+ miles per hour. And here's the hour-by-hour wind forecast through tonight and tomorrow. So this is tomorrow at about noon. And they're not remarkably strong, but they're sustained at 10 to 15 miles per hour. And that's enough to be problematic. But one of the keys is that it's off the Atlantic. That's huge for tomorrow. That means higher humidity overnight tonight that will likely persist through tomorrow. That helps out firefighters. There'll be more cloud cover, as you can see here. This is the area of the fire on this map right now. This is 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. We move forward, and there you can see some showers that move in off the Atlantic every once in a while, too. It's not widespread or real heavy rain, but here's about noon tomorrow, and you can see there are a few showers that move, if not over the fire, at least very near it. And the point to take away from this isn't so much it may rain on the fire tomorrow, but the overall conditions will not be like they were today or the last couple of days. The fire conditions won't be as ripe. There'll be higher humidity, there'll be the cloud cover, and every once in a while, even a few showers. And the temperatures won't be near as warm. So here's that fire, the movement of that northeast surge, or essentially a cold front that moved rapidly to the south and to the west as we expected it to today, moving off the cool air of the Atlantic. And there's the fire still raging near County Road 121 and 119. We're zooming in now. Let's get in even a little. There's Countryside Acres Avenue, which was evacuated about an hour ago, I want to say, or so. Here's County Road 119, and here's 121. This is where the very active fire is. There's River Farms Road has come into view. That's an area of concern as well. Now we're showing you the updated satellite imagery out in First Alert Doppler HD, which really gives you a good idea. You can see all the vegetation, all the growth, all the trees. So that's the fuel for the fire. But interspersed here, you can see buildings, no doubt. There's not a large community, not a big city in the path of this fire right now, but there are a number of homes, as we've heard from several people that have had to be evacuated already within the last couple of hours. There are homes, there are businesses here that are going to be affected, and it's across, it's everywhere across Highway 121 that will be a concern now, overnight, tonight, and tomorrow with this wind shift that is out of the east-northeast, which means it's blowing on your screen from right to left, a wind out of the east-northeast off of the Atlantic, which will bring in better moisture for tonight and tomorrow, but still will be a gusty wind that's pushing that smoke plume now to the west and possibly the fire to, or at least parts of it, certainly the embers. We have some good shots around the area from our Skycam network. Let's begin by taking a look at our Riverside Skycam network, and you can see here the smoke off into the distance to the west and to the northwest. If we can go to our Skycam network here instead of computer number 1, and there it is. And there you can see the smoke on the horizon from the fires. The sun is beginning to set now, but this is also smoke up here, and that's the upper level winds. So over Metro Jacksonville, and now we're going to switch it to the landing. There's smoke overhead. Look, this is looking south from the landing. This is all smoke. So even though it's 25 miles away from that fire and the fire is actually pushing westbound, the smoke in the upper levels of the atmosphere is pushing over the city of Jacksonville right now. That's why you're seeing and maybe even smelling some smoke, but it's in the upper levels of the atmosphere. That fire is not headed for Jacksonville. And we even have a shot, I believe, yeah, from our traffic cam. We can show from the west side of downtown. You'll be able to see the smoke as well. There it is. There you can see the sun setting with the smoke in the distance, but there's some of that smoke that's overhead from the Fuller Warren Bridge. Now, First Alert Doppler HD showing that push of northeast winds moving quickly from northeast to southwest, fanning, helping to fan that fire. There's that smoke that was dropping southward initially and is still hanging over northern Clay County and Orange Park and Fleming Island and Oakleaf. That's all smoke. It's in the upper levels, as we saw on our Skycam network from the landing, but this is the lower level smoke from the actual fire. So you got a lot going on here meteorologically, and then that fire is creating its own weather environment. Been here more than 15 years, saw huge wildfires in southern Georgia that created massive plumes of smoke that look like billowing thunderstorms. This one's not that big, at least not yet, but it is the same kind of idea, creating strong localized winds that can be 40 and 50 miles per hour, swirls of fire. We've seen that today in our video from Sky Action News Jax. There you can see the emergency vehicles and the fire trucks. That fire is getting really close to the road now, and those visibilities as the night goes on here and we get to sunset, the winds come down a little bit, not a lot necessarily, but it will come down some, and with higher humidity, that smoke will have a tendency to settle closer to the ground. So that's a problem for residents in far western Nassau County, northeastern Baker, southeastern Charlton County, and it will even possibly mix with some fog later tonight and early tomorrow morning to reduce visibilities even more. But there's the highway, and there you can see the fire. I mean, it's right there. And as Annalisa spoke about a little earlier, the firemen aren't necessarily trying to directly battle the blaze at this point. They're trying to set fire lines, take control of the perimeter, protect homes and businesses, and then once all that's taken care of and perhaps the fire conditions have gone down some and will help out some, then they may actually try to truly attack that fire. But overnight tonight, it'll be more of a wait and see game, and then tomorrow they can go with the daylight, go right at the fire and maybe get a little bit of air help as well. But there you can see even more fire vehicles now on scene along the highway. They're trying to spread out to try to make sure that if this did happen to jump the highway, they would be able to hopefully maybe put out any spot fires quickly on the other side of the highway. And these guys are in for a long evening and overnight. This will be non-stop vigilant fire patrol and control tonight into tomorrow morning as this fire there you can see the winds. Look at the winds blowing at the trees. It's still a pretty gusty wind, probably 15 to 20 miles per hour just looking at those trees, but gusts even stronger. And in the immediate vicinity of that fire, there'll be wind gusts that could be 30 or even 40 miles per hour at times. So go to computer number 1 here. We can go to a split screen again, perhaps, and there we can see the distance markers on here. So there's Bryceville right on Highway 3. This is the actual community of Bryceville, and the fire is 6 miles now west-northwest of Bryceville, and it is not headed for Bryceville. Some of the confusion comes about when it talked about the evacuation on Highway 119 and 121. They have a Bryceville zip code there, but Bryceville itself on Highway 301 is okay. And then it's also about 8 miles south of St. George, Georgia. You certainly can. That's a beautiful little town in Georgia near the Florida-Georgia line. And you can certainly see the fire and the smoke to the south of St. George. But with these current wind conditions, it stays south of St. George and it stays west of Bryceville. We're on street level mapping now. County Road 121, County Road 119. This is the area that's been so under the gun over the last couple of hours, in the area that's been evacuated, and that fire now shifting with the wind, shifting more to the west, and it's areas west of Highway 121 where we're really concerned about. Now you can see how Sky Action News Jax has widened the view, and you just get an idea of just how large this blaze is. That would be more likely the southeast or eastern edge of the fire there that we're seeing, where because the winds are blowing the smoke to the west and to the southwest, so that implies that we're looking at the east and southeast edge of the fire. This would be the opposite side, so sort of the west edge of the fire, and you still see plenty of active flames there now. Still the smoke blowing around. The trees are swaying back and forth, so there's some wind still helping out here in what is a very dry area. We've talked about this. There's plenty of dead vegetation from the winter, from freezes that occurred. Even though we had a very mild winter, we had a freeze last week in this area. Some of these areas had temperatures down into the mid-20s, so that's dry vegetation. In some cases, it's brown vegetation, easily burns. We have not had a lot of rain. We all know that, and so conditions are right for wildfires, and we're headed toward the peak of the wildfire season. April and May, typically the peak of our wildfire season in Jacksonville, northeastern Florida, and southeast Georgia, before we finally usually get to the wet season, which doesn't start until June. Sometimes can be even later in what has been a very unusual winter around here anyway. So hopefully the wet season will at least be on time, if not early. But having said that, I see no significant rain anytime soon. In fact, let's pop up just real quick the 7-day forecast, Garrett. I don't see any significant rain anytime soon between now and the middle of next week. Yes, there'll be some showers from time to time tomorrow, so that helps out overall. The overall conditions are better tomorrow, and the temperatures will be cooler. Now, it will still be breezy, and then we start to go back up again. We're near 80 over the weekend and in the 80s next week, so it's warm, it's dry. Those showers Tuesday and Wednesday, those are isolated showers. I think fire conditions are pretty significant again as we get to Saturday, Sunday, and into the early and middle part of next week. By far, tomorrow's the best day from a firefighting standpoint. The temperatures are cooler, there's more cloud cover, and there'll be higher humidity. So the firefighters will get some help from Mother Nature to some degree overnight tonight, even more so tomorrow. But then that fire risk starts to go up again Friday and looks to really escalate over the weekend into the early part of next week. John, Tanika?
All right, Mike, thank you very much. We're just getting some information, and we have not been able to confirm it with firefighters there, but we are hearing from one of our sources in that area that they were hearing explosions about 15 minutes ago in the area that's been evacuated, which I don't want to alarm people because they could just, this is probably like a gas tank or something that gets caught in the fire and explodes. We're working to, confirm what that might have been, and certainly don't know anything more than that. But that would not surprise me if there are some, propane tanks or whatever people are using to heat their homes that catch fire and then explode. But that gives you another idea of just what's happening here. We've got homes in the area here that are in the path of this fire, and right now, live look from Sky Action News Jax as firefighters have congregated here on this road as the fire approaches the road. And this is tactical here. They're going to start. We saw them earlier spraying some of these parts. They're letting it burn to this road, and they want it just to stop right there. And that's why they have concentrated their efforts right here, because as soon as he gets there, they'll douse that, and they will hopefully have that part of the fire at least contained. And that is part of their strategy, no doubt about it.
We got you covered on all of our platforms: Twitter, Facebook, actionnewsjax.com, and of course our mobile app. This is a developing story. We will also be giving you updates hour by hour. Of course, Action News Jax 10 and 11 will have full coverage of the day's events with this wildfire.
And we have multiple crews spread out throughout this fire here, and we will have all of them reporting live for us coming up on Fox 30 Action News Jax at 10, and of course on CBS 47 Action News Jax at 11. So we'll have all that coming up for you, and hourly updates. In the meantime, we're going to send you back to regular programming. We're going to continue to monitor this fire in Nassau County.